Today, we'll be adding a jump feature to our FPS character. Go ahead and load up the FPS template from our last tutorial, FPS Basics. If you haven't seen that video, there'll be an annotation on screen now, or you can check the description of the video. The first object we need is an area trigger. Spawn one in from the Triggers and Events Triggers section. Snap it near your other objects, and remember to press right stick twice to snap the angles of the object. This area trigger is going to detect when we're standing on solid ground. Open up the object properties of the area trigger. Turn on physics since we want to detect collision. Objects can only detect collision when physics are on. We're also going to change some things under advanced physics. We only need this area trigger for collision, so we don't want it to move by itself. These next few settings are going to do that. Set the mass to be 0.1 kilograms, set the friction to 0, set the linear dampening to 0, set the angular dampening to 0, select Disable Global Dampening, set the restitution to 0, set the buoyancy to 0, select Disable World Gravity, and set the object gravity to -1. These settings guarantee that the area trigger moves as little as possible while still being active. Lastly, make sure to change the physics type to no contact response since we only want to detect collision. The enabled option should already be selected, but if it's not, make sure to turn it on. Change the shape of our area trigger to sphere and set the size to 1.9 meters. Under the Trigger By section, we're going to change which objects trigger this trigger. Since we want to detect collision with all objects, change the type to Exclude. Deselect Bike and Rider as there is only one object we need to exclude, our game character. Select Object Instances and select our game character sphere. Now return to the Object Properties menu. Leave hit tolerance at 1, but deselect Disable after hit since we want our trigger to always be active. The rest of the options are fine as they are. The second object we need is an object position event to move our area trigger. Spawn one in from the Events section and snap it near your other object position events. Go ahead and reassign the event filter for the interval trigger to our new object position event. Then assign the event filter for our new object position event to the event that just lost the impulse. Make sure that no events get left out of the impulse chain. We only need to detect collision at our feet, so our area trigger needs to be lower than our game character. To do this, we can use a similar method to raising our game camera. Spawn in a 2-input operator from the Operations section. Change the type of operation to Subtract, and set operand 1 to be our game character's Y position or up and down coordinate, and set operand 2 to be 0.10. This will subtract 0.1 units from the Y coordinate, moving the coordinate down and placing the area trigger below our game character. Under the Object Position Event Properties, deselect Local and turn off Modify Rotation. Assign Position X to our game character's Position X, assign Position Y to our new subtracted Y value, and assign Position Z to our game character's Position Z. Select Event Target to be our area trigger. Press the back button to check your progress. Make sure that you see the area trigger slightly protruding from the bottom of the game character. You can also test the track out from the Start menu. Make sure to enable Show Editor Icons, and then you should be able to see the yellow checkerboard somewhere on your screen. I noticed while testing the track that the sensitivity was too low, so I'll change that now. Recall from last video that the sensitivity was the value that we multiplied our right joystick by. Since they both use the same value, I'm going to combine them into a single variable data source. Spawn in a variable data source from under the Data Source section and snap it near our right joystick group. To set both values at once, hold down the Multi-Select button, which is left bumper on Xbox, and select both operators. When you open up their object properties, you should see that operand 1 is dark. This shows that each operator uses a different operand 1. You'll notice that operand 2 is still bright though, since it has the same value of 0.10. Now assign operator 2 to be our variable data source. You should see that the variable data source is now connected to both operators. Now set your variable data source to a sensitivity that you want. Since I wanted a higher sensitivity, I'll set my value to something larger, such as 0.80. Test your track to check the sensitivity. You'll notice my sensitivity is much greater. Before we can begin jumping, we need to know when we are allowed to jump. To do this, spawn in a variable data source and snap it near your area trigger. Also, spawn in 2 set value events and snap them near your variable data source. For the first set value event, make sure the value is 0.00 and select event target to be our variable data source. For the second set value event, change the value to 1.00 and select event target to be our variable data source. Under the area trigger's properties, select on hit to be our second set value event, and under advanced events, select on leave to be our first set value event. This setup will now make the variable data source 1 every time the area trigger is on the ground and 0 every time the area trigger leaves the ground. Imagine the number 1 is a jump available state and 0 is a jump not available state. We now need a jump button. You can use any of the buttons under the controller buttons section. I normally use the controller gas button, which represents the right trigger and A button on the Xbox controller. Spawn one of these buttons in and snap it near your area trigger. We only want to jump when the variable data source is set to 1, which is the jump available state, so we need some sort of checker. These checkers are known as filters under the filters section. Spawn in the generic filter and snap it near your button. This generic filter can check the equality of numbers. Under the generic filter's properties, leave the operation set to equals, but assign comparison value 1 to be our variable data source. Set comparison value 2 to be 1. This filter will now evaluate to true each time our variable data source is 1. Under your button's properties, assign either on press or on down to your generic filter. On press will make players press the button each time they want to jump, while on down will allow players to hold the button down and make the character jump whenever possible. I will be using on down. Assign one of these options to your generic filter. We also need a way to use our jump ability. Copy the first set value event, the one that sets the variable data source to 0, and place it near your generic filter. Under your generic filter's properties, select true event to be this new set value event. This now completes the logic portion of jumping. Whenever the button is pressed, it will check to see if there is a jump available. If there is one, it will use that jump by setting the variable data source to 0. If no jump is available, it will do nothing. If your character leaves the ground without jumping, such as walking off a ledge, the jump ability will be used so that you cannot jump while in the air. When your character touches back down, it will replenish your jump ability and you will be ready to jump again. Finally, we're going to apply this jumping mechanic to the game character through custom object gravities. Spawn in a variable data source and place it near your jumping group. This variable data source will represent the gravity of our game character. Change the value of this data source to some negative number, which will represent the downward pull of gravity. I'm going to use negative 1200. Also, spawn in 2 set value events and an impulse delay filter. The impulse delay filter is located under the filters section. Assign event filters for each of these toolcards exactly as I do. Order does matter. From your using jump set value event, assign to the first set value event. From the first set value event, assign event filter to the impulse delay filter. From the impulse delay filter, assign to the second new set value event. Make sure you can follow the chain of impulses from your button through each event and that no event gets left out of the chain. Under your first new set value event, change the value to some large positive number. This will represent the force upwards of a jump. I normally use 8,000. Set the event target to be our variable data source that represents gravity. Under the second set value event, change the value to be the same number as your negative number in the gravity data source. Again, I will use negative 1200. Set the event target to be our gravity data source. Impulse delay filters will hold an impulse for a desired amount of time. We want it to hold an impulse for the duration of the jump and then send the impulse to the last set value event, which will return the gravity to normal. Since a jump isn't very long, set the delay ticks to a small number. I normally use 6 ticks. A larger value will make you jump for longer, while a smaller value will make you jump quicker. Finally, under your game character's properties, in the advanced physics section, assign the object gravity to be our gravity data source. Your character should now be able to jump. Test your track out from the start menu. Alrighty guys, that's it for this week. I created this short area here to show off some of the drawbacks of this FPS character. You'll notice that with the jumping mechanic now you can easily scale these vertical surfaces and get up places. Not too high though. But you'll notice here on a very steep incline, the character almost seems to get stuck. It can't go up. And this is a problem that's evident in a lot of FPS characters in Trials, Fusion, Evolution, all the old FPS characters. This is a problem that's always persistent. You'll notice it here on this incline. On a low incline, it's pretty good going up, but up this steep incline, it's nearly impossible to get all the way up. And this can be very frustrating when you want to make games that vary in height. So this is going to be something that we're going to be fixing in next week's video. We'll add a running mechanic and we'll fine-tune this character to get more accurate results and more responsive controls. But since this is all done, go ahead and save this off as an FPS template so we can use it in the future. I've been Pneumatic Bog. If you guys have any other tutorials you want to see, leave them down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.